The idea that immigrants come over here and they don't know anything and they're dragging us down, because we all come from immigrants, including you, Tomi Lahren.
She talks about low skills. What exactly are her skills?
Her second great-grandmother had been here for 10 years, yet spoke no English. Oh my gosh. 1930 census says Tomi's 3 times great-grandmother had been here for 41 years and still spoke German. She didn't speak English either. She doesn't even know her own history. She certainly doesn't know this.
Tomi Lahren arrived with receipts, popcorn, and a flamethrower after the sunny host stumbled over her own moral high horse. Can you imagine making fun of someone's heritage while posing as woke? In this episode of Who Wants to Be a Hypocrite, a sunny girl chooses to struggle. The drama is more intense than a reunion of Real Housewives, and you won't believe what Sunny said next. Tomi didn't just hit back. She gave a masterclass in public takedowns.
What led to that bashing on The View?
Well, there is a woman over the weekend who took it upon herself to research my family history in hopes of digging up some kind of a gotcha moment, a gotcha angle to validate illegal immigration and open borders. And what she found was really shocking, guys. She found that my family who came here in the 1800s from Norway and Germany, that they spoke Norwegian and German.
Okay.
And really what she did is prove that my family came here legally, but what she was hoping to do was try to call me a hypocrite for believing in merit-based.
Being a full-time moral authority, a part-time host of a daytime talk show, and an occasional Olympic-level mental gymnast must be very taxing. Tomi Lahren, a woman whose political commentary is usually sharper than Sunny's wardrobe criticism, and whose tolerance for hypocrisy is well-nigh non-existent, was the only one to notice the fall. Yes, the walking encyclopedia of who you should cancel next somehow managed to put on her own halo this time.
Again, she failed miserably, but this really isn't what she calls resistance genealogy. It's just another indication of Trump derangement syndrome. But I really am happy, though, that she has such a fascination with my family history, and I'm hoping that she will take on Elizabeth Warren's next. Well, it's not just me. It's anybody who advocates for merit-based immigration or has an issue with open borders. And again, just like you said, they don't seem to understand that we on the right believe in immigration. We understand that we are a nation of immigrants, and I am proud of my...
Tomi didn't just clap back when Sunny attacked Tomi's heritage like it was a piñata at a brunch party. Instead, she delivered a blow so tastefully petty that it likely sent Sunny's coffee flying off her glass table. However, this wasn't your typical Twitter feud or a daytime television jab. Rather, it was a well-timed spotlight revealing the subtle underbelly of self-proclaimed wokeness, where inclusivity comes with a politically correct asterisk, and heritage matters only when it fits the story.
Don't you believe in love?
Of course I do, but I want to get to your question, because this whole Trump is anti-woman thing, I just don't buy it. Because if he was so anti-woman, why did he select a female to run his campaign? If Kellyanne Conway had been a Democrat, you all at this table would have been applauding her, singing her praises. So if he doesn't like women, he's anti-woman. I don't think he would have selected a woman to
That's like
run
saying
his campaign.
Jewish and being an anti-Semite. It has nothing to do with
I
one
trust
thing.
women.
No, I think there's something to say. You're putting your money where your mouth is. You're putting your money where your mouth.
Tomi demanded accuracy, not volume, and Sunny was occupied with receiving praise for her virtue onliners. In a society where being offended is valuable and victimization is the preferred resume boost, Tomi launched a metaphorical fact-checking, flamethrower, and set the entire script on fire. Tomi took the risk of stating, "Actually, no, you don't get to mock someone's background just because you're wearing the progressive name tag."
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took the news.
Let's not exaggerate the situation. This wasn't a feud. A rivalry usually entails two fighters sparring on an equal basis and exchanging verbal insults like heavyweight competitors. But this was a silent, well-planned dissection, a masterclass in surgical humiliation without speaking. Instead of confronting Tomi Lahren, Sanani Hust dismissed her with an arrogant eye roll and wrist flick, almost shattering her own moral superiority. She carelessly made crude remarks about Tomi's background, views, and ideas, her heritage, but let's take a moment to consider the possibility that those same remarks were directed at someone else who was higher on the media's diversity scorecard. CNN would host emergency panels and take viewers on a month-long apology tour that included heartfelt remarks. HRM required workshops and most likely a book deal about the experience. But since Tomi's heritage doesn't fit into the rainbow coalition of acceptable identities, no victimhood badge, check marks, or Hollywood backstory, it's open season. And oh, how the self-righteous love hunting when they believe the prey can't shoot back. They get a special joy from condescension masquerading as commentary. It's the smugness of thinking their prejudice is activism when it's aimed at the wrong kind of person, wow.
I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune.
But Tomi didn't play dead. She just sharpened her facts, adjusted the mirror, and let Sunny trip over her own reflection. Because sometimes the most devastating clapback isn't a scream. It's silence with receipts. Unfortunately for Sunny, Tomi came, locked and loaded with what the internet lovingly refers to as receipts, and what sane people recognize as common sense, without shouting, without table flipping, and without calling for a boycott. Tomi simply drags Sunny across the marble floors. Of her own contradictions, you see, when you spend your entire career demanding people respect every culture, every background, and every ancestry, you might want to avoid publicly mocking someone else's roots just because they vote red instead of blue. But Sunny couldn't help herself. The moral superiority factory must have had a gas leak. She managed to weaponize identity politics with the finesse of a chainsaw, going straight after Tomi's background, like it was an acceptable form of character, assassination. And this is where the irony starts to bake like a well-seasoned roast, because Tomi's ancestry, middle-class, working family, immigrant lineage isn't exactly a story out of a golf club newsletter. We're talking about generations that built themselves up brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, not dripping in privilege, not handed a legacy position at some think tank, just classic American grit with a sprinkle of Midwestern frostbite.
Provide them with DNA, 23andMe, because I cannot believe the detail on your background that they were able to get.
Well, I don't have to. She did all the research for me, so I'm sure my family is very appreciative.
What about Joy saying, though, what are your skills? It's beyond research. It is personal. It is mean.
Well, of course, this is classical Joy Behar, but I would like to ask Joy Behar what her skills are, because perhaps we could swap stories. I know I watched Joy, and she seems like a highly skilled lady, but for her to attack me, that's really interesting. Those in glass houses should not throw stones.
However, it seems that such a legacy is only regarded as legitimate if you cast the right ballot. Thus, here we are. Instead of yelling about unfairness or demanding a network apology, Tomi simply exposed the contradiction in the most endearing way possible. She simply walked the audience through Sunny's greatest hits of hypocrisy, and it was a banger of an album. Remember when Sunny paraded as the patron saint of cultural respect? Apparently that clause had a footnote, offer void, if subject is blonde, conservative, or capable of complete sentences without a teleprompter, and that's what makes Tomi's takedown so delicious she didn't need fireworks, just a mirror, a nice clear mirror that she angled right in Sunny's direction, because when you declare yourself the Grand Marshal of the Inclusivity Parade, you better make damn sure you're not tripping over your own parade float when it counts. But Sunny tripped, fell, and somehow tried to blame the pavement, and while she was face down on the pavement of her own logic, Tomi reminded everyone that respect doesn't come with political pre-approval. You either respect everyone's background or you admit your entire brand is just seasonal marketing because, let's face it, mocking someone's ancestry because they don't cheer for the same team is the intellectual equivalent of unplugging someone's grandma from Wi-Fi and calling it activism.
Keep on talking about criminals and immigrants being criminals. And I just want people to understand what the facts are and the stats are, is that undocumented immigrants are much less likely to have committed crimes than American citizens. American citizens commit more crimes than anyone who is undocumented. I also want to make the point that an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal because he or she is undocumented. That is a civil offense. So to call people illegals is, in and of itself, I think, xenophobic and racist. I do.
The habit of selective outrage, the idea that empathy is currency but only valid at your preferred ideological store, and the idea that if you walk in wearing the wrong jersey, sorry, your humanity is not recognized here. Come back when you say the right buzzwords is what Tomi revealed. It was not just a petty jab either. This trend, let's call it Buffy style. People like Sunny get away with it by being woke. They walk down the social justice aisle, picking and choosing the causes that suit their aesthetic, and throwing out anything that doesn't fit their agenda. They are pro-immigrant, unless the immigrant is conservative, pro-women, unless the woman disagrees with you, and pro-diversity, unless the diversity includes farmers in rural America or those who believe taxes are too high. The public watched with popcorn as Tomi laid out her quiet demolition, not because everyone agreed with Tomi on politics, far from it, but rather because hypocrisy makes everyone cringe and witnessing someone fall into a trap they set for themselves is one of the few bipartisan pleasures left in America. Sunny had been playing for so long that she forgot she was being watched, and Tomi pulled the security footage. Her response wasn't anger, but precision. She pointed out that if your values collapse the moment someone with a different opinion walks into the room, then perhaps your values weren't values at all.
Democrats really want to die on the hill of bringing back plane loads of criminal, illegal alien gang members.
But you haven't proven that they're criminals.
Please.
That's the problem.
Be my guest.
Honestly, look, I will be the first one to say if there is a criminal, if there's a gang member in this country, someone who has committed any crime, big or small, get him out. Sure, I'll absolutely concede that. We don't need criminals in this country. But if you're talking about somebody who you don't know because you haven't afforded them due process, then you can't just make that claim.
But the fact remains, President Trump is not only securing our border, but he is deporting criminal, illegal aliens. And if Democrats want to stand in the way of that, and they want to tell their constituents, hey, vote for us in the midterms, vote for us in 2028, we'll make sure that the criminal aliens come back, far be it for me to stand.
The best part is that Sunny built this mess with her own hands and failed the litmus test for what constitutes an acceptable identity in real time. The internet didn't even need to embellish the facts. The story was true, and that my friends is the ultimate karma. Sunny couldn't even yell victim. Naturally, the defenders rushed to defend Sunny's actions, and professors on Twitter and Instagram preachers appeared to explain that context is important and that we should be concentrating on bigger issues. However, when the target was someone else, these same apologists brought out pitchforks, but when it's their queen of daytime TV serving unseasoned shade about someone's family history, suddenly nuance is back in style. Let's also appreciate the poetic justice of Tomi's response, where she calmly strolled through Sunny's garden of contradictions, picked the ripest ones, and held them up to the sun. Her weapon of choice was facts, and those facts struck harder than any trending hashtag. This wasn't just about a small slight. It was about destroying the elitism that comes with selective moral superiority.
Just like to state, I don't know if they understand this or not, but if you don't want your family to be broken up when you cross the border illegally, here's an idea. Don't cross the border illegally. Then your family will surely stay together. I don't know why the left can't think of this, but they would rather try to tell us that we hate families, we want to break up families, we're horrible, we're despicable. No, we want to enforce federal immigration law, which is why it exists in the first place. But again, the left cannot seem to understand this.
Because when someone like Sunny implies that someone else's ancestry is laughable, what she's really saying is, people like you aren't allowed to have pride unless we give you permission. And Tomi, she never asked for permission. She took her identity, polished it with grit, and wore it like armor. The irony here is that Tomi's background, the very thing mocked, is the same kind of story. Liberal media pretends to love humble beginnings, hard work, resilience, but that respect magically evaporates. When the story ends with someone supporting the Second Amendment and quoting the Constitution, then suddenly that origin story becomes a punchline, and that's the story no one wants to talk about because it forces people to admit that their activism might be performance, that maybe they don't actually care about your journey unless your destination is their political echo chamber, that their compassion is more like a VIP lounge by invitation only. So now we have Tomi Lahren, who just took a flamethrower to the velvet rope. She showed everyone what happens when you hold people to their own standards, especially the ones they scream about the loudest, and watching Sunny squirm without ever having to say a word. It was better than daytime. TV ever dreamed of being Tomi's response was a public service message as much as a personal victory.
As we've seen, Israel clearly doesn't play around, but every nation has the right to enforce their border. Every nation has a right to protect its citizens. I've said it before. You don't lock your door because you hate the people outside. You lock it because you believe in protecting the people inside. That is why we have a border. But the left would rather us have open borders. Again, that's a threat to our safety. And
reminder that you could not be navigating anything at all if your moral compass only points north when your buddies are there. Instead, you might be circling around with a GPS set to double standard. This whole debacle also gives us a chance to address the grand hypocrisy of cultural respect in modern discourse. You can't champion diversity while simultaneously mocking anyone whose background doesn't come with a curated sob story approved by coastal media elites. You can't claim to love all cultures and then treat rural white conservative heritage like it belongs on the clearance rack of American identity, because real inclusivity isn't about performative outrage and social media filters. It's about swallowing your pride long enough to admit that people who disagree with you still have roots, culture, families, and stories worth honoring, even if their Christmas tree is real and their politics are red. Drag of Sunny wasn't just entertaining, it was necessary. It ripped the mask off an entire genre of fake progressivism that uses identity as a prop but never respects it when it challenges the narrative. It showed that underneath all the empowerment hashtags and diversity slogans, there's often a rigid code. Agree with us or you don't count, and guess what? People are sick of it. They're tired of being told their history only matters if it comes with trauma and a Democratic voter registration. They're tired of seeing identity turned into a marketing campaign. They're tired of being told to sit quietly while someone on a talk show mocks their parents, their accent, their hometowns, and then calls themselves a champion of the people. Tomi pulled back the curtain, revealing the subtle underbelly of smug elitism and demonstrating that control over the narrative. Who gets to matter, and whose stories are allowed to be told without mockery are what drive this system. If Sunny wanted to represent the people, perhaps she should have kept in mind that people are not just blue checkboxes. They are found in cities, suburbs, farms, diners, office buildings, and yes, even Fox News green rooms. Tomi Lahren didn't just reply. She was well educated and did so with such precision that there was no need for shouting. She simply stated that if you claim to respect ancestry, respect it, teach tolerance, practice it, promote diversity, live it, or just acknowledge that you're selling bumper stickers instead of beliefs. While Sunny may still be sipping coffee on her talk show, acting as though nothing happened, the rest of us witnessed the hypocrisy and the double standard, and thanks to Tomi, we were able to witness it with the lights on and makeup removed. It turns out that the best way to expose a double standard isn't with anger, but rather with reflection and perhaps a dash of sarcasm.